Chat, I am interesante in seeing what Mr. Pokke. I don't know if you've ever watched a Mr. Pokke video on stream, but what are their ideas? Here's a link if you guys want to drop a like on it. The top 10 new F2P tips in 2025. Now, chat, I am, of course, Mr. Free to Play. I've been free to play since day one. And Mr. Pokke, I know, recently started a free to play account. And there's plenty of other people that I've been seeing that are starting F2P accounts nowadays to show how easy or difficult it might be. Well, as somebody that's been living this life from the very beginning, I will be the supreme judge of just how easy or hard it is. I think I'm going to have to move my camera. So let's see what Mr. Pokke says the top 10 tips are, and I'll let you guys know if I am agreeing or disagreeing with these takes, as well as I'd be interested to hear y'all's opinions on it as well. I know we got some free-to-plays in the chat, and obviously you guys have seen my account, so let's see what they have to say.
Are you sick and tired of looking through countless guides on the internet?
Nope.
As a new
Just don't do it.
Just started out Honkai Star Rail in 2025. Clueless, directionless, aimless. You don't know where to go, and you are begging.
This is dramatic immediately.
To save you from a potential reckoning of a lifetime.
Well, worry not, ladies and gentlemen, because not myself, obviously, no, right?
Brother.
Bob is going to show you the way. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. As someone that is Bob's best friend,
chat, is
I have
volume
seen
good?
the growth of Bob's journey in the past 3 going into 1 month of playing with Bob ever since its creation of 2025.
Dude, 1 month of free to play. I got 2 years into this shit.
Brand new free to play accounts, and here I'm gonna be sharing with you top 10 best free to play tips that you can make use of
that
to
I will
get
judge,
your journey in Honkai Star Rail.
that I will confirm or deny.
Bob-tastic start. So without further ado, I'm jumping right in with no stop, and the very first tip that I think is gonna be very important. I'm not gonna be giving you guys like some boring ass useless shit. For example, level up your units, level up your tracers, spend your stamina, right? No.
Okay, to be fair though, that is exactly what people should be doing. You should level up your characters and your traces and your lycones. That is the foundational piece for everything else to be built upon. Level your characters, lycones, and traces.
We're actually gonna go through important ass things that takes more than 1 second to explain. And the first thing that you guys need to start doing is going to not just focus on one team, but also prepare a couple of pocket trick shots in your backline. So there has been this
We'll let him cook first, but already I think I have a completely different outlook.
Advice,
Can't
which
see
is
stats, it'll be fine.
focus on one team, right? That has been since day one. You build up your one team, make them as strong as possible, and
Okay,
then slowly
never mind, let
let
'em cook.
them pivot out and do all of your content, do your SU, do your DU, do your storm disaster, and then only when you know you have gotten enough time, you have built up enough equilibrium levels to farm traces more effectively, then start building up your second team. My suggestion for
Agreed.
this tip is, for Bob at least, build up a couple of pocket trick shots aside from your beginning team of 4. What do I mean?
Before we listen to what Mr. Pokke has to say, I'm assuming what this is going to be is building characters that can be utilized across multiple teams. So there's some 4 stars that are easier to build because they're less expensive and they get utilized in multiple comps. Gallagher is a great example. I think March 7th Hunt has done a really good job. Historically, Ting Yun, Payla's incredible. But I do want to emphasize, finish one team first. And if somebody's starting in 2025 and because of all these banners, you can get a more complete comp immediately, I would not stray away from the idea of just building the 4 characters that will work together, finishing, and then starting on the next team.
Mean by pocket trick shots is they are namely units that You might not invest in them fully. Like for example, we are gonna be at level 80 for all these units with a good amount of tracers invested. But a couple of units such as your Pepella, your Bailu, right? Even if they are not at level 60, level 70, or even level 80, they still give you a...
Max them to level 80 for sure. If you're going to spend time building any amount into your unit, I think you should finish that unit. So many people will build to certain ascensions to get one ticket that's going to result in a cornucopia. Like, it does not matter. Use those resources to finish characters. I'm very adamant on finishing your builds.
Tremendous amount of value, and it takes almost nothing for you to raise. In fact, I would say as a free-to-play player, do not be afraid to raise up multiple units in your lifetime. Maybe not now, maybe not tomorrow, but this thingy right here.
Real_state just reached LVL5.
Rio! Yo, thank you for the primer! Can we get a couple W's in the chat for the prime ski? Arigato!
Equivalent of 3 standard summons. And the materials required for these, they are most of the time very cheap. It costs you almost nothing to level them up, especially for a 4-star. Getting this throughout the course of your life, getting them up to level 70, it is not going to be seen as a waste because...
Yeah, so I just immediately disagree. I said it a second ago. All of that energy, because it's already hard to convince people to spend energy on doing the boring farming for characters, light cones, and traces. So now spending that energy that a lot of people would like to spend in relics too early anyway, you're spending on units that you're not even going to fully optimize. I think that is honestly a silly way to be successful, especially if you're going to be free to play or a low spender. Full commit, dude. Full send. Who cares about the standard banner tickets? They're going to get you 3-star light cones that you're never going to use anyway.
Because you are going to be getting an abundance of resources that essentially just, it earns its value back by itself for free, right? So that is going to be the very first advice. The second advice is going to be this right here. I'm not even sure if people actually discover, because not even myself, I discovered this tip up until I've seen Bob's journey. You see this thing over here? Your equilibrium level, right?
Okay.
20, 30, 40, 50, 60 respectively, it goes up. And it will make not only your efficiency for your domains, your stamina better, it also gives you more daily income, right? Your dailies, your weeklies. It gives you a little bit more strategies.
RIP to daily
One
challenges.
advice I can give to beginners is do not level this instantly. Especially if you're someone that wants to speed run through the story and the events. Now, why that is the case is because when you level up your equilibrium level, not only do you upgrade your discount up, right? Not only do you upgrade your efficiency for the standing shadows, your cataclysm, your camp, it also makes the overworld enemies more difficult. Very similar to if you play like Wandering Waves, Genshin, or whatever.
So this is true. When you ascend or when you increase your equilibrium, you will in fact be making the game more difficult. Essentially, every equilibrium you go up is scaling the difficulty to match your newfound strength, essentially. And you don't have to do these immediately. We'll see what else Pokey has to say here, but for the sake of maximum efficiency in your farming, which I assume, especially with a new account and free-to-play players, you'd like to get to endgame, you'd like to, be as strong as possible, as soon as possible. All of your Trailblaze power is just going to go that much further for all the reasons that were already laid out. When you do your ascensions or your equilibriums, you're going to get more materials for the same amount of Trailblaze power. Now, this is maybe in contrast with tip number 1 that I disagree with, where it is going to be tougher if you're only leveling characters to 60 or 70 and not finishing them. But if you are scaling your teams, like if you have one main team and you're scaling that team to your equilibrium, and it's a well-constructed comp, you know what I mean? Like, some people put together 4 damage dealers and go, why can't I win? Or 4 sustainers, why can't I win? So you've got to have some understanding of team building, but given you've got a team that makes sense, and you are scaling that team to your equilibriums, I don't think you're going to have much trouble, and then every bit of Trailblaze power you spend is going to be more efficient for then continuing to raise that team as well as raising your second team.
The higher this is, the more difficult the enemies are. Now, this is not a problem if you have Aircron and you can one-shot the little mobs.
Yeah, that's true too.
But you can't do this with elites. If you're a player that intends to not pull for any unit, right? If you didn't pull for D, you just want to start off with a no pull account because you're saving up for future units. Raising up the equilibrium level too fast, it actually slows down your progress of clearing all of these rewards. Because the chests, right? The chests that you see in the overworld, it is the exact same amount whether you do it at 20 or 65. It is the exact same. But the elites gets ridiculously difficult. So my advice is essentially just make them easy for you so that you can just clear them at your time, get the chests, and only after you are like, confident enough, then consider raising them up. And then you can farm your tracers, you can farm your killers and kind of stuff, right? So
I don't remember, and like BH, you mentioned it, Chad, if anybody remembers, tell me, like, when do you start needing 2 teams to clear the equilibriums? Because it's been, well over a year, months and months and months since I've had to do this myself, so maybe I'm slightly out of touch on this. But I literally started the game. I've told you guys this a million times. I cleared everything with a Pepega comp. I used Sela, Lil Herda, Welt, and Natasha. I burned that team to the ground. Horrible team comp. Doesn't even make any sense. And just use that comp to get through this stuff. I don't really remember needing 2 teams to get through this stuff. And if the point, like what BH brought up, is you're going to need 2 team comps. So, it'll be harder because you'll have to level a second team comp, but you'll have, harder content. Well, I still disagree, at least in part, because of the fact that you're going to be getting more materials, so you should be able to farm up that second team faster. But if the idea is just so that you can get chests, I mean, that's great, but it's 5, 10, or 20 jades. It is a percentage of a singular wish. If you're really worried about getting wishes, just power through the story. I know it's going to be kind of boring to just go through that much story just immediately, but there's other ways to get jades, especially if it's just 5 jades. I think he's talking about the ones with the elites, though, which I believe are 20 jades.
that is going to be tip number 2. Tip number 3. Now, this might be a pretty... I'm not even sure if this is... you might not even believe me, right? But your very, very, very first unit that you pull as a beginner, if you just started out Honkai Star in 2025, the first banner unit you pull is going to have a significant impact on how your early game, as well as even mid game, is going to feel like.
Totally agreed. Let's see what he has to say. Koos, appreciate it. Yeah, if it's only 1 team comp, then yeah, I stand by everything I've been saying. Just focus on 1 team comp. Try to make it a synergistic team. If you don't know, join the community. Come to our community. Twitch will be linked in the bio, which we're going to upload this to YouTube. I think this will be a good video. Or join a Discord. Come watch other streams. It doesn't have to be me, but there's plenty of people that you can talk to that will give you a pretty generalized idea of what characters make sense and what characters synergize together. There's Discords, there's YouTubes, there's Twitch, there's all sorts of stuff. And what's up, Nostra? Welcome in, guys.
You are only ever going to have 1 single early game. You're only going to experience your level 20s, level 30s, level 40s 1 time, and then it's gone forever. Just like in real life. Your 20s,
say what's up to YouTube, everybody.
30s, 40s only last once, and it's never coming back. So this is the exact same principle in Honkai Star Rail. If you were to have an endless cycle of endgame content, that was a basically perma refresh. Before you get to that point, you only have 1 single experience for your early and mid game. And on this note, the first unit that you pull, the value it brings to your account, especially in the early and mid game, pulling for a DPS is actually gonna feel better than pulling for a sustain.
I agree.
What is he even saying? Oh my god, pulling for limited DPS. This guy's fucking he's greedy and stupid. He's greedy and stupid.
Yep.
Now listen. The reason why this is the case is because if let's say you decided to pull for a sustain, right?
Okay.
If you pulled for let's just say you pulled for Bubbin right now. You start on version 3, you decide to skip D Herda, you want to secure Bubbin.
Okay.
What is 0 times 2? It is still gonna be 0. But what is 0 plus 1? That is gonna be 1. So you can kind of...
I mean, you can't argue with the math. 0 times 2 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. But what is Buddy cooking right now? I don't understand.
Look, in the lens of a value at least, your first unit that you ever pull, the experience that you'll be feeling towards the early game and mid game is gonna feel a lot better from a DPS upgrade perspective compared to a support. Sure, you can run your Bubbin with like your QQ, your
Okay.
Danheng, right?
Okay.
Your Saval. You can run them. But I would argue you're probably gonna be in for a very, very rough time. Not only do you have no crit, you have no traces, you have no abilities, you have no lycos, you have nothing. Your baseline is so low, even if you were to get Robin's action value advance, even if you were to get the additional damage, it is not gonna lead to a very smooth experience, or rather not as smooth of an experience compared to if you put for a limited 5-star DPS as your first ever pull.
Okay, so Zontox, I'm gonna use yours, saying it's better to have Herda buffed by Asta instead of Don Hung buffed by Robin. So, although I don't necessarily disagree with this sentiment, and chat, let me know what you guys think. One's in chat if you think you should pull for a DPS first. Two's in chat if you think it doesn't matter or you'd pull for somebody else. But I will say this. I'm very adamant about the idea of just pulling for your favorite unit. Okay? So whenever you're starting the game, maybe if you're starting the game in 2025, it's because you've seen certain units and you're like, wow, I saw this Acheron character. She looks so cool. Wow, I saw Ron May. I'd really love to get her on my account. The argument would be, in my opinion, that you shouldn't invest in characters that you are not going to use later down the road. So, if we are investing in our DPS, then you could argue that if you can pair that DPS with a character like Pela that could be used, you know, so far she's been great the entire game, then you'd be maximizing your resources spent versus if you pulled Robin, as suggested in this video, and because of that, you have to build OG Don Hung, and now you're never going to use him again, then that would be a waste of resources. However, if we want to argue that your Stellar Jade are your most premium resource, pulling for a unit that you're not excited about just because they fulfill this quota, I would push back on it a little bit. So do I think the idea of Unga Bunga through early game will be a smoother experience if you have a DPS? Sure. I have no reason to disagree with that, especially because I think DPSs are a dime a dozen, which only amplifies that if we're talking about the 4-star options available. The 4-star supports and sustains are a little bit more valuable for a longer period of time. So I do agree with that. But if your favorite character is on banner when you start and they happen to be a support or a sustain, well, I wouldn't skip out on pulling those characters. But it does seem like Chad agrees with the idea of the DPS. And again, it makes sense.
All right, as your first ever pull.
Just don't skip out on your favorite
However,
unit, you know what I
if you
mean?
were to pull for D Herda, right? I'm just gonna use D Herda as an example right now. She's a unit that even if you didn't have any
if people
of
don't
the
know who to
limited
pull, then
sustains,
just
right,
hang
or rather
tight
any
is
of the
what I would
limited
argue.
5 stars, she can essentially function very well with a essentially completely free team. RMZ is the GOAT.
That is
Herda
true.
is free.
Herda's
Just
awesome in
pull
this
whatever
aspect.
category. This sustain can be anyone. This experience you're going to be getting, even with complete dog shit ratio, is still going to feel better for you, especially in the early game and the mid game. We don't care about zero cycling, not even zero. We don't even care about the end game.
We don't. We really don't care about zero cycling, especially if you're free to play. That is for people that want to swipe and want to sweat. If that's not you, 10 cycles, 0 cycle, you get the same amount of jades regardless.
Content, which most of the time you would require a proper team setup to actually tackle these endgame content challenges, right? And you're only gonna experience this once in your life. The moment you are past all of these early games, right, and then you reach level 65, you're gonna look back and ask yourself, do you have fun playing Honkai Star Rail?
Holy smokes! Let him cook, bro! Let him cook. Chat, we literally just went on a rant about it earlier. These are video games. They are meant to be fun. If the game is agitating you more than it is bringing you joy, something is going awry. So yeah, have fun with it for sure. W take.
Early and mid game. Did the unit that you pull gave you that amount of value? Because the fundamental end of the day is, you're playing this in order to have fun. If you're playing this from a perspective of, oh, I need to be efficient, I only care about speed running to the end game, frankly speaking, you can't even do that.
10-hour story,
Unless you
different
play for
topic.
E6, you can't even speed run to end game within the first week because you have no units. You literally do not have enough units.
Hey, what's up, guys?
To
Welcome
tackle
in.
this, even if you want to build supports. So for free to plays, I would actually recommend considering getting this 5-star limit DPS as your first unit, and then you start building from there. If you don't agree with me, if you still want to pull for a support, that's fine. But just be prepared that your early and mid-game experience is probably not gonna feel as smooth as compared to this, right? Why if you didn't start on D Herta patch?
I think
Why
that's
have
all
you started
fair.
on a patch
It
like
really
Sela
is.
Or
Just
Jingren
don't
back
skip
then?
out on your favorite unit
Then
because
what?
they're not a DPS.
Now the thing with this is, no matter which point you start with, you are still only going to have one early game and one mid game. And not to mention, back then, we don't even have units like Rame or Babin. There was no such thing as a limited sustain or as a limited support.
Yep.
So you basically had nothing to pull for if you are just waiting for that miracle 5-star harmony unit or a miracle 5-star nihility. God bless Silverwolf, oh my god. And let's just be real, even on Silverwolf's launch, her usage back then in 1.1, it was still very, very good, especially for new players.
That's because Silverwolf changed everything until she didn't and doesn't get used anymore. 07's in the chat for Silverwolf. You're still cool, just not that good.
It's just that now times have changed, and the early game experience, despite having the banners change, doesn't. You still only have this one early game, and the experience will always be better whether or not you decide to pull for a DPS to improve a 4-star Dunheng, or decide to pull for a, I don't know, a Barbin to supplement your 4-star Dunheng. So my point is basically you only have one early game. Make the best use of it. You only have one childhood. You have one time in college. You have one time in adulthood before you retire. Try to make the best use of it and have the most fun before you eventually go into the bottomless pit of relic farming and endgame, right? So that.
I don't disagree with anything that he's saying, but he's making it so dramatic. Dude, a lot of people that are starting nowadays are going to want to fly through early and mid game as fast as possible. So although, you know, the analogy may be correct, you don't realize what you got till it's gone. Those were, in fact, the good old days. It's not that serious.
That's basically my point. Okay, tip number 4. This is basically your stamina usage.
Okay.
And we're just gonna lump this into one. How do you spend your stamina as a beginner starting out in Honkai Star Rail?
Fingers crossed. The only advice here should be level characters, traces, and light cones until you get to Equilibrium 5, aka level 60, and you get double golds from your caverns. If that's not the response, I disagree.
So, generally speaking, and you might think I'm talking like obvious shit that everybody knows. You'll be surprised how many people I've seen in all my account reviews that just doesn't give a flying fuck about traces and just leave them at level 5. Yep, I'm looking at you. Alright?
Incredible.
Traces,
Thank you.
They will always be permanent upgrades.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Chad, we've been saying this for how long? Dude, incredible. Pokey's got a huge audience. More people need to hear this. A million times. Whenever we do account assistance, whenever we hop on people's accounts, the reason people can't clear content is because they ignore things like traces, okay? It's never the units you do or don't have. It's did you build your units, yes or no?
permanent upgrades.
It shouldn't
right?
need to be said.
Permanent
I agree, but it
upgrades.
happens
The moment you
constantly.
unlock
Because
this,
it's not
it's
glamorous.
done.
People
It's
don't care.
permanently upgraded, and
Chad, like the excitement received, the dopamine hit received, leveling your trace from 6 to 7 is non-existent in comparison to farming a crit rate chest with attack, speed, and crit damage on it. And people love that, and I get it. However, it's just non-optimal. That's all it comes down to. So again, it's video games. Play whatever is going to give you the most enjoyment, but if you want to optimize, if clearing content is your end goal, this is exactly what you need to do.
and you will never have to look at it for the rest of your life ever again.
Exactly.
You found the Reddit cavern for 10,000 times and you could not get a single good shit, but the moment
Oh
this
my
is done,
gosh. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Dude, I mean, Pokey's got a way bigger platform. Thank you for saying this. Seriously, people need to hear this. I know it should come as common sense. If you're on Twitch, the majority of you guys probably feel this way, but so many people will ignore it. And yo, what up, Odin? Welcome in, everybody.
this is done. You are free. Be free, my little man, right? You just need to get this done once and once only, and you never have to look at it again. So from a
Yes.
perspective of whether you do it now or do it later, it has to be done anyways if you
Yup.
want to make your unit stronger. So from a stamina perspective, going all in for tracers would be the most important priority, followed by if you want to have additional credit, experience, because you are not really spamming, just speed running autos, you can get them as you need. Do not farm relics until at
Dude, just so people don't think I'm the only one saying it. Can farm relics for months and get nothing. Why does it do this, dude? And get nothing good. At least traces are guaranteed upgrades that you can get fairly quickly. 100%. 100%.
at least level 60, because level 60 is essentially the most efficient part. And before you reach this, you can also get a couple of relics here and there from the normal story, from the normal events, as
Yup.
well as even Echoes of War, and you just run Rainbow, right? Like,
Yup.
okay, literally look at this shit. Most of our stuff is just still +0 because
Yup.
we just have nothing good for us going on. All right, I try to force this a little bit. It is basically completely unupgraded because I'm still not level 65. We did gamble a little bit, but I'm going to talk about this a little bit later by the power of Wishful Resin. God bless that way. But essentially, you don't need to invest in relics whatsoever, and you can still pretty much clear all of your early and mid-game
100%.
content, namely story, events, SU, DU, Storm Disaster, Gold and Gear, and unknowledgeable domain, right?
100%.
So relics are the least of your concern. There are 3 key levels of permanent upgrades in terms of equivalent level.
Before we go past that, just to echo the sentiment, because you are farming the map and getting relics, because you should be doing your Echoes of War, you are going to get relics from plenty of places. And this is something that I see people trying to jump the gun on. They look at a guide and it says a character, let's say Facial, for example, wants Duran and Wind Soaring. So they go, oh, I need to get her Duran and Wind Soaring. When if you're in early and mid game, and honestly, in endgame, late game as well, stats are more important than sets. Don't worry about getting a 2 or a 4-piece bonus. Just put the proper stats when available from the free stuff that you get. And Pokey did mention, I was kind of yapping over top of it, once you hit Equilibrium 5 at level 60, then you can be guaranteed double golds. It will be the most efficient way to farm Depression.
Your level 50 at this particular point,
Don't farm Eagle
that's when
set,
your
no.
EXP and your relic experience and your Litecoin experience, which is going to be your Calyx gold, right? This right here, this will be mixed up. Level 60 is when your Calyx crimson and your stagnant shadows is maxed out.
Yep.
And level 65 is when your Cave of Corrosion is maxed out. So keep ahead of these 3 different levels of maximum efficiency. I would say that even though you max out Golden at like level 50, I don't think you will be dumping a lot of stamina here, because you're actually given a lot of this throughout the course of all of the events and story that we have built up for the past almost 2 years, right? So you will still most likely farm a little bit more in Crimson Domain, even if it's not at the maximum efficiency, because building up a unit completely free to play, it takes quite a bit of stamina.
Another thing with your stamina, if you want to save a little bit of stam, when you're going through story, you're going to have fights, you're gonna, attack enemies on the map, and you're gonna gain a little bit of experience. I think it's worth in early and mid game, instead of leveling your character to 50, stop them at 49. Instead of leveling them to 60, stop them at 59, and allow yourself to get some free to play experience. It's not gonna be that big of a difference, and it could save you a couple trips to a golden calyx to try to free to play farm some character experience. That being said, this does not work for light cones. This does not work for traces. The only way to level those is to get the mats and use the mats. So for your characters, you can cheese it just a little bit, but for your light cones and traces, just commit.
It takes quite a bit of stamina, right? So a stamina plan I would suggest is between 1 through 50, right? You will be done with it within a week. The moment you speed run through the story and all that, it will give you so much experience. You will be almost at level 60. So just play the game and get as close to level 60 as possible, and then you just farm whichever you feel lagging. If you really have no credit, which is, in my opinion, is basically impossible, then you can farm, but otherwise stick to your tracers. 60 to 65 is basically your tracers plus essential material. You can also consider pre-farming for future units. You should only pre-farm only upon reaching level 60. Do not pre-farm unless you reach level 60, because
And once you've already completed the characters you're using,
you're not efficient, right? Then once all that is done, up until level 65, you can start your congratulations. Welcome to adulthood.
damn,
Welcome to the grind.
people class.
This is all there is to it. Enjoy, right? So that is pretty much it gonna be for our stamina plan. And tip number 5, which is kind of similar to tip number 4, which is this thingy right here. There's this thing which is gonna be shown
Fuel?
in your stamina potion, right? Stamina potions, there was a bit of a discussion for the usage rate, especially in
Interested
the
to see
earlier
what he's gonna
phases
say
of
here.
Honkai Star Rail back when it first launched. One school of thought, which was myself back then, it was good to just dump everything instantly and try to get to a level as fast as possible, because the faster you level up, the faster you unlock your equilibrium levels, and the faster this goes up, you actually get more stellar jades per day and per week from your dailies as well as your weeklies, based on your
I don't remember
equilibrium
that,
level.
but I'll take his word for it.
Then, the moment you dump everything, your natural stamina can then be used to essentially be farming the more efficient domain, right? So speed running back then, it was kind of a train of thought. There was another train of thought, which is to save your potions only until you can farm the maximum efficiency. I think most community, they were thinking about level 65, because then you can dump them all into relics, because you have been farming nothing but tracers for like the past 64 levels, right?
Okay.
So at this point in 2025, I would say this.
Tim, your
Like I
rewards go
mentioned
up
just
as
now,
well. Nice.
You actually gain a shit ton of experience back then. Or rather, you get a shit ton more experience now compared to back then. Why? Because you're instantly given 1.5 year worth of story and events from the
Yeah,
get-go.
true.
So you can actually power level your Trailblaze level incredibly fast compared to last time. So you don't really have that big of a downtime when it comes to this. For Bob, within 2 weeks, okay, but this is to say, this is not representative of the average player, because we have, we have the Bob Council farming, perma-farming events, perma-farming story to just speedrun this, right? You don't have to do this yourself, but you have this backlog of one-time clears that as long as you play the game and you speedrun them through, you can actually gain an incredibly high amount of Trailblaze experience, to the point where for Bob, after finishing almost everything, he was around level 58 in roughly 2 weeks.
So, to expand on this point, and I do think what Pokey's saying here makes a ton of sense, because there's so much more story, event, etc. There's way more experience available in the game than there was when it first came out. We only had 1.0. We had the original story and whatever original quests. So in order to get that level up, we didn't have as many options. In 2025, you've got plenty of options, and once you do get to max Trailblaze level, getting more experience does absolutely nothing for you. I think maybe you could get more money from it. Maybe you get credits. I can't remember. But yeah, if you can save your fuels, I do think it would be smart. I'm interested to see what Pokey's going to recommend using fuels for. So this is like a concept. Should you use fuels to gain experience? Because when you spend Trailblaze power, not only do you get your materials, so to speak, but you also get a certain level of experience as well, which is why using them when the game first came out would allow people to level up faster. Now, because there's so much experience that is going to do nothing for you after you've gotten maximum level, essentially, you can use that to get through your levels and get through your equilibrium. Now, as far as where we're spending these fuels, on character level traces, light cones, or on relics, ornaments, anything else that you can farm, very curious what the suggestion will be here.
So as long as you clear all these one-time clear Trailblaze level, that should be roughly where you're at. So you actually don't really have a phase where you're not
so the
farming
events don't
efficiently
give limited
because you
time
can
rewards anymore, but you
essentially
can
reach
still
close
do
to
them.
level 60
Yes, they're in the
by the time you're done
archive.
with everything. So because of this, I would actually recommend hoarding your stamina until level 60.
Agreed
I
on that,
mentioned this
for
in
sure.
my previous Bob progress, whatever. Holding your stamina until
Perma
level
Bob
60
Bob,
and
what
then
up, Joe?
dumping them all into tracers, in my opinion, is the most efficient way, right? Because you level up faster, which means you reach level 65 before the other people, which means that you unlock the equivalent level faster to get more strategies. And when you dump them at level 60, you are essentially farming them in the most efficient place that it can be, right?
Yeah,
Which is basically going to
agreed.
be your Crimson Calyx as well as your Standard Shadow, right? So these two are the most efficient way. So dumping them at level 60 has inherently no difference when you dump them at level 65. In fact, it's even less efficient since you're leveling up slower. Whereas the guy that dumped them can reach level 65 even faster than you, right? So that is gonna be
The thing that's
whether or
really
not
going to
should
matter,
you
and he
spend
alluded
your
to it,
stamina
how fast
potions.
are you
Tip
actually getting through
number
story and
6.
such?
Tip number 6. High value units.
Okay, before we move on to tip number 6 here, I thought that Pokey would say something about it, but as far as where you use your fuel, and maybe he was insinuating it, if you've got fuel, somebody literally came in at the beginning of stream and already asked this, I think you should still use fuel to level up your foundational pieces, characters, light cones, and traces, because if you use your regular stamina and then you use fuel for relics, or if you use your fuel, or excuse me, use regular stamina for relics and then you use your fuel for, the foundational pieces, which is how I used to justify it, use one for one part of it, use the other for another part of it. Just level up your characters. I'm telling you guys, maxing out characters, traces, and light cones, although boring, is a guaranteed increase in strength. And like Pokey already mentioned, you never got to do it again. Finish it for a character, it's done. When you farm relics and ornaments, new sets come out pretty frequently. And with new sets and new synergies, new characters, new content, some sets start being more optimal than old sets. So if you spend a bunch of time farming the perfect X set, and then a new set comes out that's more optimal. Let's think about early game. Early on, we didn't have the prisoner set, so people were farming the lightning set for Kafka. Seemed like the best thing at the time. So if you spend all of your Trailblaze power getting the best lightning set just for the prisoner set to come out, and you're like, well, shoot, I got to do the same thing over again, and now I'm farming prisoner set. Meanwhile, you've been sitting at level 6 traces the whole time. You've done yourself no favors. So it's happened before. I promise you it will happen again. So if you're watching this in 2025, it's just all the more reason to focus on your foundational levels. And then, we've seen it. There's literally a backlog. There's a precedent set for a character being best in slot with X relics, and then it changing once for some characters, maybe more than once, Also, what up, guys? Welcome in.
High value units. I'm not going to be talking about which 5 stars to pull because this is fundamentally going to be dependent on your personal preference, but high value units that basically everyone can try to look out for.
Okay.
I would say that the high value units in 2025 nowadays, it is very, very different from high value units back in 2023 when the game first launched. Now, the reason why that is because last time, for example, when you see units like Timin, right?
What up?
It's like, oh my god, she's so goddamn important, right? Everybody needs to raise her and everything. But for Bob specifically, I have noticed that I haven't really made full use of Tingyun.
Tingyun fell off. I hate to say it, but
Namely
she's got
because the
far
meta
less
is
value than she
shifting,
used to.
right? It's always shifting. At the start of the game, it was just crit DPS. Nowadays, you have dual DPS, you have units like RMC, even units like Bronya. It might not even be as valuable anymore because we're constantly getting the shifts in the art that we'll be getting, right? So some high value units that I would highly recommend anyone raise, one of them being your Trailblazer, right? This unit, when you level them up, the level is shared for all paths. every single path is
Fell in
basically
broker neck.
level
Hasn't been
80,
the
right?
same
So you
since.
should 100% level this up. Unlike Genshin Impact, this is actually ridiculously good unit. Between the Harmony MC as well as your Remembrance unit, unfortunately, you guys couldn't pull for any of Ramen. You guys can't pull for Fugue, so you are probably not going to be running Harmony MC for a very long time. But you would still use Harmony MC in the early game before RMC because super break damage is really, really high in simulated universe. So if you want to play in SU,
Team
this is
2.0
honestly a
relevant
pretty
now.
decent
Yep.
path. I didn't really invest. Yo, cool,
That's why
that's
she
nice.
came
I
back as
didn't really
break
invest in the
support
trace
is
at all.
crazy.
Yippee. I didn't really invest in the trace at all. Just a little bit here and there. And then I just dumped everything to the EXP as well as the
I do think Pokey's making a really good point here. You only got to level your MC one time. Now, different paths are going to obviously need different light cones, and they do have different traces. So you are going to have to worry about leveling light cones and traces separately. But starting off with Harmony MC, they were awesome and allowed us to have a free unit that rode alongside what the push meta at the time was with Break. And now with Remembrance MC, it seems like, again, a free support that we can use that will ride along the current meta with, right now they're doing true damage, but with Herda and Aglaya coming out, it's more of your traditional hyper carries, but it's a different multiplier that we can use alongside of them. So they are quite nice. I said it earlier, but other units right now, to me, the best 4 stars would include Gallagher, Hunt March, Pela. There's other ones out there, but yeah, MC as a free unit, a 5-star technically, but kind of treated like a free 4-star unit, if you will, is quite nice.
the Lycons. And then I swap past to RMC.
Not Arlen,
so
no, not that guy.
high value unit, Trailblazer, specifically RMC, as of this current point of time, especially if you play Dihara or any of the most right DPS, right? Or any of the average or whatever. Herda, baby Herda, she is pretty high value. Even more
Can I
so
get
if
a
you go
kudu
on Dihara
kudu
and
in
you
the
run her as a
chat,
battery
baby?
build, if you do not
Day
run her as a
one
battery
Herda
build, you
enjoyer.
can still
Don't
use her in the next
forget.
time when you play Pure Fission. She is just that versatile, so no harm, no foul in Razor.
Yeah, she easy
Gallagher,
claps in Pure
currently,
Fiction for
I
sure.
It kind of depends, because Mihoyo in Honkai
As
Star Rail,
much as I
sometimes it
love,
gives you a
dude,
4
as much as I love Herda, I wouldn't recommend for a new player to build her immediately. Having just a team of 4 that makes sense as your foundational team to build off of, and Herda's probably not going to be in that comp unless you pull big Herda, then there's an argument for it. She would be, after you've established your first, maybe second team, and then start building Herda. Some of the other characters are a little bit more effective.
selector. This time it gave us Ting Yun. Sometimes it does in fact give you Gallagher. So you can just kind of wait and see a selector if you don't have a Gallagher yet. But he is pretty much the best 4-star sustain. By
Dude,
far.
he's the best.
No one really comes close to what he has
He
to
might
offer.
be the best sustain for the money,
unit,
for the
especially
value,
Critical Crow,
pound
action
for
very
pound.
advanced, and a lot of touch and damage, which is going to be a very important factor, right? Hunt March 7th. I already said this enough. I'm not going to grill her. I'm not going to, glaze her any more than I need to. An excellent Gorge Down unit, especially with pair
She's
up
so
with Harmony Trailblazer, Gallagher. These 3 would be like one of the core for
So
your early
good.
game SU experience.
Oh,
right?
yeah, I love
good,
Natasha,
especially
too.
if you don't even want to pull for D Herda. Pella,
Yup.
it is still good enough. She's kind of like the pocket trick shot,
We're on
right?
the
She's
same
your-
page,
she's
baby.
just-
We're on the
she's
same
like,
page right
she's
now.
a baby pistol. You will most likely still run her in Team 2, especially for your second team, right? And you don't really need a lot of investments.
fact, we
Raise
get
up
Himiko
only
early.
the
That's
talent and
true,
ultimate,
yeah,
and
free
that's pretty
5-star
much all you need.
selector, if
Doesn't
that's
really care about
available.
items and
Dude, that's a really good point. I don't know if it gets brought up in this video, but some of the standard banner 5 stars, nowadays, if you've got a selector free 5-star that you can use and you're starting the game in 2025, you haven't used it yet, Himiko might be the best one to utilize because she has been versatile as crit or break with super break. And particularly in Pure Fiction, she's held a lot of value since Pure Fiction has come out. So there's other units that can be good. All of the units definitely have their value. Bronya, although there's a lot of characters that do, the same thing as Bronya with the action advance and the crit damage scaling, can still be good if you don't have those other units. Now, everybody gets Remembrance MC, so harder to make that argument, but Bronya's got her value. Clara is quite good as well, and if you need a sustainer, if you don't have a Gallagher, and you need to go with a Byler or a Japard, I think they will get phased out of your rotation, but something to consider.
super cheap, super easy to invest. Every other unit, I would say it's not that important unless you decide to skip a DPS and you pull for support, then you could consider your 4-star DPS, which is your sustain.
Yeah, less fire weakness.
I'm gonna talk about them a little bit more.
Drop her down,
separately.
agreed, but I'm saying over the past however many patches, she's found value. It should still be solid in pure fiction if it remains the way that it is.
Over here. All right, so that's
Claire may be more valuable.
And I would bring this part to now the standard DPS, right? So this is still under high value units, right? So this is still under high value units. Your standard DPS. So in case you guys didn't know, at 300 pools, you can basically select.
Chat, who do you think, if you were starting the game today, which of these standard banner units would you choose? It does, for whatever reasoning, sure, but like if you get the selector, you have to get one. Who are you starting with? Let me know.
This for free is still up here. I'm at 110 for Bob, and
it'd be good for anybody that watches on YouTube too. A lot of Himiko's, Clara, Welt. Welt's probably the hardest to sell right now. I'll be honest.
I would
Clara, I think Himiko, Clara, Bronya probably top 3.
Was Bronya. Alright, we didn't have any of the sustains, alright, we didn't have any of the supports, we didn't have Runmei, we didn't have Babu, we didn't have Sparkle, we didn't have anything, right? Bronya was pretty much one of the best choice. Sometimes people wanted to choose Clara, sometimes people want to choose Himiko, depending on the content. Sure. But
to be fair, it could be determined based off of who you're pulling for limited as well. Get a limited DPS, use this for a support.
If there can only
get a limited sustain, use this for a DPS.
Highest future value, it is most likely going to be Himiko, right? She's erudition. You could play her as a battery, but she's worse than Baby Herta. She's good for pure fiction. She can be run as super break. She is most likely going to be performing not too shabbily in like erudition content. All these other units, they essentially have almost no future value, especially at the E0 S0 baseline, right? Bronya, I can't remember them. She has just got power grab by RMC. She has no skill point. The buff lasts 1 turn. Is deadless, right? So she almost serves no purpose unless you eventually get like E1 or even E6. But RMC legit just does the job better than Bronya. Well, Yang, it is what it is. Japard and Bailu, I would say these two are probably one of your better value units in the early and mid game. Because you need 2 teams.
Don't sleep on Bailu, for
I would
real.
say that in the early game, for pretty much any new players, pulling for sustain is not as game-changing as pulling for a upgraded support or even an upgraded DPS. Because you can kind of get by even with Bailu and Japard. Their sustain is good enough for the early and mid game. By end game, you should have already built up enough units and built up enough relics to the point where you can start looking into your options. But in the early and mid game, upgrading your DPS and upgrading your supports is going to be more important. So if you actually did manage to get Japard and Bailu, you can use them for either Team 1 or Team 2. And they are going to be able to sustain very well, especially if you're talking about like SU or like DU. Japard's shield has a lot of synergy, especially with the preservation path, right? So it can make your life even easier. Clara and Yanqing.
He's doing a nice job of making these characters sound as good as possible. They've all got their pitfalls.
Utility-based DPS. She's pretty beefy. She deals quite a decent amount of counter damage. She has a skill.
The thing that I'll say about Bailu, this is the worst part about Bailu and the best part about Bailu that a lot of people overlook or potentially play incorrect. And what's up, guys? Welcome. Worst part, nowadays, you basically need a cleanse. Being able to cleanse your teammates from crowd control debuffs is extremely important, especially when a lot of this is like speed content, whereas you only have a certain amount of cycles or you need to do it in the maximum, or I guess the minimum amount of action value, yada, yada, yada. So Bailu having no cleanse is yikes. However, her revive is cool. Hopefully you don't have to rely on that. But here's what people play wrong quite often. You want to ult with Bailu as soon as you have it. Does she have damage mitigation? Not exactly. Not in the same way that like Fu Xuan will quite literally minimize the amount of damage that character X takes because she is absorbing some of it for them. But what Bailu can do is when she uses her ult, she applies what's called invigoration. And that will counteract any damage that is taken. Sometimes you get more health back than the amount of damage that you took. So you could lose 500 HP, but gain back 1,000. Now the problem is, invigoration only lasts for like 2 or 3 turns. Like 2 or 3 attacks. I forget exactly how it works. I haven't been using her a lot recently. But whenever you get her ulti, even if your characters are maxed on HP, a lot of people like to save their heals until characters are hurt. well, you were essentially eliminating two things. One, the opportunity to get hit and stay full HP, and two, if you apply your awe and get invigoration while at max HP, it actually increases your character's HP. So let's just say you had 3,000 HP, you apply invigoration, I forget exactly what it is, but it might go up to like 3,300 instead of 3k. So if you do end up with Bailu, the CC kind of sucky. Luckily, there are other characters that can help with cleanse. For example, Bronya's skill, Sunday's skill have a cleanse. There's other units that could potentially help out with that. However, use her ultimate when you get it. And she got the revive. If you get her E6 and get 2 revives, I'm so sorry.
Not too bad, but the moment you get any of the version 3 DPS archetypes, you will feel a
Is it actually 10% damage mitigation? Well, color me clueless.
Right, so that is gonna be
that makes her even better.
Units in terms of which one to whichever you get, which one you should raise, and which one you should choose. Right, so that is gonna be that. Tip number 7.
Number 7.
This is kind of tied to my previous point about high value units and my very first point of leveling one team with a couple of pocket trick shots or a couple of sidearms, which is how do you decide on who to pull? Technically, this advice is not just for free.
This is the only thing you need to decide. Do you like the unit, yes or no? There's a lot of ways to optimize, but optimizing is not always the most fun. And when playing a video game, I think fun should be your #1 goal, and then you should try to optimize alongside your fun. The fastest way to stop enjoying the game is to pull a character because myself or somebody else on YouTube or on Twitch or on Twitter told you that this character's crazy. Pull the characters that you find exciting, optimize around them.
Free to place, but it is especially important for free to place and new free to place because it will essentially shape how your account look like for the rest of your lives. So how do you decide who to pull? I don't want to yet about it too much over here. You can, if you want an example, follow my journey with Bob, where all of my free to play account updates, I will go through with you guys what are Bob's thought process when it comes to which units to pull. And how can you make this the best possible experience for your own account? Because every single account,
Dude, best experience, konnichiwa. Best experience is very subjective based off who is doing. Sorry, that's a horrible freeze frame. My bad. But again, like I went through chat. When did I get my first limited sustain? It was Avon on rerun, right? So it would be smart, it would be optimal, efficient to get a limited sustain sooner rather than later. And now, we're in 2025. We're in 3.0, only moving forward. So times have changed. However, pulling for units you enjoy is going to be more important. There are characters that will be more optimal. But if you hate that character, if you don't like their look, if you don't like their personality, if you don't like their playstyle, if you don't like their animations, why would you get them? They might be the most efficient, but if it's not going to be fun, just ignore them, okay? Just ignore them.
Individual, you have different preferences, right? Some people like D Herda, some people like Mighty,
Y'all
some
get
people
that
like
character review in a little while,
really
and
depends on
what up,
how
Luca?
you want to make it. One important thing to take note over here is that you can see Bob. This is a complete free to play, by the way.
It's a lot of jades.
Complete free to play. This is roughly
jades,
3 weeks old. After clearing through every single one of the one-time clear rewards, we have roughly 60,000 Stellar Jades with 21 limited summons. After pulling and securing E0, S0 Herta, and I think 70-ish pulls, right?
Yeah.
So you can say that throughout.
That is true. If you pull for who you like and you can't clear endgame, then yeah, you can't have it both ways. But the idea would be that if you're having fun playing the game, pull for fun units. And if you're pulling for fun units, you'll want to play the game longer. So if you only can 30 out of 36 star MOC, so you miss out on 160 Stellar Jades, minus 1 wish, but then you quit, then, you know, when you get 30 out of 36, or hopefully better, in perpetuity moving forward, well, now you didn't just miss out on 1 wish, you missed out on 3, 4, 5, you know?
Bob's lifetime in the past 3 weeks, a free-to-play should have roughly 450 pulls by the time 3 weeks are over. Which means that you are going to have an abundance, a shit ton of pulls. But please...
Yeah, well, there are free-to-play sustainers as well, like Gallagher.
Because this will be the highest amount of head start you will ever get in your entire life as a free play. These
does
are
sound true, though.
essentially the biggest life savings, unless you win this. This is an event that's going on right now. Unless you win this, you are not gonna be able to, this is it, right? So I am
Surely you'll win.
highly advising new free plays to 慎重考虑, alright? Think carefully before deciding all in, because you feel like you have a lot of pools now, but future patches, it will never ever give you this amount ever again.
Yeah.
Right? This is a one-time thing.
Facts.
So please think carefully before putting, and for pooling advice, just check out my journey, and I kind of just explain how Bob will plan his own pools as a brand new free-to-play account, right? So that's gonna be that. Okay, tip.
All right, before tip number 8, the one other thing that I'll say about that, if you are playing through story, you just started an account, you're playing through story, you have an excess of Stellar Jades, you do not need Eidolons. You do not need every signature light cone. If you've got that amount, you may be very tempted to go after the E1 or the E2 and the signature. I have all of my characters, again, day 1 free to play, all of them are E0. I'm not even interested in getting Eidolons. Some of them have signatures, some of them do not. I think it will help any account to have more E0 5 stars, limited 5 stars, than have less with E1 or E2. Now, there's arguments against that for sure. There's a free-to-play account that we use when we do Asia server endgame because it comes out a day early. That's a free-to-play account that saved up and got E2 S1 Acheron. And she carries. It's very helpful. So I'm not saying that it can't be helpful or that there aren't exceptions. But if you are starting and you're watching, Pokke's video, you're watching me react to the video, you may be tempted. I have 60,000 Stellar Jade. The E2 is really good. Well, if you don't need the E2, but that could allow you, so you just get the E0 and it could allow you to get a second and maybe a third limited just when you're 50-50 is that easy. I think that'd be more beneficial overall.
Number 8. This is gonna be a little bit more of a advanced tip. So by the time you reach tip number 8, you should be roughly 2 or 3 weeks in the game, roughly level 60, and you're
If you like
thinking
big numbers,
of this
just
endgame stuff, right?
be better.
There are 3 endgame content in Honkai Star Rail that refreshes, which means that if they refresh, the rewards, which is Stellar Jades, they will never come back ever again. So these are like your income stream that will only happen as long as you clear them, right? So tip number 8 is try to pace your team building with the refresh that is gonna occur. So for example, Pure Fiction is gonna refresh in 5 days.
Okay.
For Bob, he would try to start slowly pivoting into Pure Fiction before this refreshes and just do his best as much as he can. I'm not saying he needs to clear 80,000 points for all 4 stages or the same thing for A-Port Shadow. Just try to build up your pocket team, right? Your sidearm, 2 teams, and get as many Stellar Jades as possible, because there is going to be permanent Stellar Jades added to your account. So for Bob example, right, we tried A-Port Shadow 1 day before it refreshed, and we still got a pretty nice 240 Stellar Jades with essentially level 60 and level 50 units, with like a level 40 Pela and a level 40 Bailu. So it is still a very, very decent increase of stamina, or rather Stellar Jades. So consider pacing your team building around the endgame refreshes.
So I got a couple things to say about this. And thank you for the stream streak. Also welcome in, guys. Look, going back to a point that I was making earlier about getting one team and maximizing that team, okay? I've said this plenty of times. You would be better off, in my opinion, having one fully completed team and then just tossing out what you've got and getting further than if you had 2 teams built at 75%. So the example I've given is if you can build 150%. I'm sure I probably have it on my notepad somewhere. Let's see. No, maybe I've deleted it. Yeah, I think I did get rid of it. But basically, some people will go into endgame with one team comp that's built to 75% of their maximum efficiency, and a second team at 75% to maximum efficiency, totaling 150. I'd argue you'd be better off having one team at 100% efficiency and your second team at only 50% efficiency. Because in things like Pure Fiction, maybe that first side, the first team, can get you 40k. So the second side doesn't need nearly as much, instead of two sides that are both struggling and get you 20k, for example. Same thing in like MOC. If you have one side that can be extremely efficient and clear in 2 cycles, well, now you have 8 cycles remaining for your less good team. And, you know, whether you agree with that or not, I think the point that Pokey's making here, you should, whether you're, you know, just starting or you've been playing for a while, just because you can't full clear, you should 1000% try to get as far as you can get. Because like Pokey already mentioned, these Jades are never coming back. So whether you can 12-star on APOC or Pure Fiction, 36-star on MOC or not, do what you can. Even if you can get 1-star on Pure Fiction or APOC, extra 60 Jades. I mean, you got to get 3 on MOC, but point still stands. Get what you can, you know what I mean? It might feel a little like deflating if you try and your favorite content creator is constantly clearing and you see videos on YouTube of people zero cycling and you try and you're like, dude, I can't even clear MOC 3, let alone 12. It's better than nothing, okay? And those are Jades that you'd otherwise not be getting anywhere else.
Tip number 9. This is pretty much gonna be one of the last tips.
Okay.
Vertical investment or horizontal investment. This doesn't just apply to new free plays. This applies to, I think, almost everybody playing Honkai Star Rail right now with power creep, with HMG, with everything. Vertical or horizontal investment. Here's the thing. If you are someone that can keep up with the banners that Honkai Star Rail releases and you want to have the easiest possible time, technically speaking, pulling for every single new unit is gonna give you the easiest time. So by that definition, horizontal investment is gonna help you cover everything, right? For every single time a brand new unit comes out, all endgame content will be tailored for that new unit. So
100%.
Even at E0, S0, you're gonna be chilling. But the problem with doing this is most, if not all free to plays, unless you are legit like the luckiest person on earth,
Samir,
you
I
are
hope I'm
not
saying
able
that
to keep
right.
up. It is impossible for you to keep up. You are eventually going to reach a point where you will run out of pools because you keep chasing the new units.
Yeah.
So, an example, right? Let's just say you are somebody that wanted to play Break. And upon Boot Hill's release for Break, they made the content perfect for Boot Hill because it was mainly focused on single target, or it allowed an environment where he can gain this pocket trick shots very easily.
Important.
Not just for the buffs, but also for the enemies that Boot Hill was facing. So you pull for Boot Hill and you commit, he's gonna be feeling great. And then we release other new break DPS like Firefly as well as Reba. So at this point, you could still use Boot Hill in an environment, let's just say Reba, right? Against all these content, Boot Hill might not be doing too good. He's going to be facing more difficulties. But at the end of the day, they are all break DPS. And as a general rule of thumb, as long as you are logging into this one archetype, it's completely fine if you're facing more difficulties compared to the brand new unit. And you need to be okay with that. So the moment you're okay with this, you can then start thinking about, do you want to build up a archetype to cover your weaknesses? Do you want to vertically invest in the current Boot Hill team with either like E1 Rame, you want to pull for Field, you want to pull for Lingsha, all that kind of stuff? So just know that as a free-to-play, you simply cannot keep up. And I would personally say, at least this is what Bob is going to be doing, lock into 2 archetypes.
Okay, so I don't necessarily disagree with what Pokey's saying here, but to expand on it a little bit. It's not as bad in 2025 as it was when the game first came out. I've been on record saying this numerous times, where previous endgames, earlier on, if you didn't have the latest and greatest, newest limited drop, it was really hard to utilize the buff in order to be successful. The new endgame, the new buff, will always make the newest limited character look as good as they are ever going to look. Okay? So that being said, you can kind of get debated. Oh my gosh, I need to clear this content. This character does really good. Well, it's because everything's tailored perfectly for them. All right? But nowadays in 2025, because there's so many archetypes out there, and a lot of the times, especially in like Pure Fiction and APOC Shadow specifically, you get choices on the buffs, on the bonuses that you get to apply, and typically they will be good for multiple archetypes. So just building out, again, well constructed synergistic team comps will be great, and you can work around it, whereas previously you may not have been able to. So don't get you baited by a new character looking good in endgame. Just stay the path. If you're starting the game recently, stay the path. It's really easy to get distracted. Ooh, new shiny toy, piece of candy, gotta go get it. You don't. You'll be fine without it. And the other part of this is Hoyo does a really nice job as of the past, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 endgame cycles. They release on Hoyo Lab ahead of time what the new APOC, Pure Fiction, MOC are going to be, what the buffs are going to be, what the bonuses are going to be ahead of time. So you don't have to be reactionary in the moment when that endgame comes out. You can literally look at the information that Hoyoverse at HSR is providing themselves to show you this is what's coming, and you can start planning accordingly. So it's not like waiting until the last minute and then trying to put together team comps to be successful. You can look at it literally weeks in advance and start planning down the road. Hey, today my account might not be that good to clear endgame, but by the time that the next APOC, MOC, Pure Fiction comes out, I will have built appropriately in order to be as successful as possible in that content. So a couple things that you guys can do. And Zion, I think you're bringing up good points. Yeah, we get multiple metas each year. Don't try to chase all of them. Just, whichever ones are appealing to you, commit to those. It's no problem. It's no problem. And what up, guys? Welcome in. Mega, how you doing today? Welcome, guys.
Unless
we just got a little bit more of this video to get through, content, and then we can we can yap about it together.
Cool, right? So for now, log into 2 different archetypes, and you focus on pooling units that can vertically make this archetype stronger, be it support, be it sustain, be it, or even like a DPS item, right? This is why some people that only play version 1 team, like Scylla, like Jingliu, Jingyuan Blade, or even DOT, even if they play version 1 teams, they can still make them clear the current content now, because they decide to vertically invest.
That helps as well.
Types.
Vertically investing in older characters does make them relevant for longer.
Perspective. And if you don't want to do this and you pull horizontally for every new unit, just be prepared to essentially, run out one day, right? Run out one day. Never, ever, ever pull for meta, because the
Oh my gosh, bro. Pokey's been catching a lot of flack recently. I don't really involve myself in this kind of stuff, but bro, Buddy is spitting. I haven't agreed with 100% of what Pokey has said, and I think that's great. You know what I mean? We should have disagreements as a community from time to time, but never, never pull for meta. Again, fastest way to stop enjoying your gameplay. Pull for characters you like. Don't chase meta. It is ever changing. Every character that comes out is meta for the patch that they come out. And the next patch, maybe not so much.
Meta always changes. It is always designed to upsell the latest unit. The moment the meta is gone and you feel that, oh shit, I wasted my pulls, that is when you got baited, right? You got FOMO. Never ever pull meta. Stick to the plan. Work on the plan. Know that there are going to be ups and downs. And remember the reason why you played Honkai Star Rail. Do you play it to earn Stellar Jades, or do you play it to enjoy the goddamn gets and the boobas? Okay, anyways.
For fun, baby.
Now we come to the final tip.
The final tip.
The most important tip. You have to watch MrPokke's channel at twitch.tv.
Oh my gosh. Hey, good video though. Good video. Is there anything else, or is Buddy just yapping? Dude, that was good. That was good. Chat, what did you think of this? Overall, I think they were pretty good tips. I will say this much, man. Look, as somebody that's been playing free to play from day one, okay? Not because I was trying to prove anything necessarily, but because I'm poor. All right? And I didn't want to spend any money. And now I want to be pretentious and tell people, well, I've been free to play since day one. So anyway, I agree with a lot of this. Ultimately, you should be playing the game to enjoy yourself. You should be playing the game to have fun. And I do think if there's something that you could do as an HSR player to try to maximize your experience, to avoid pitfalls. I mean, follow these tips for sure. Like I said, I agree with a lot of it. There's some of it that I disagreed with. You know, it's good to get information from multiple places, excuse me. But if you're watching this, then chances are you already consume, you know, content for HSR or other gotchas on YouTube or on Twitch. Join in. I mentioned it earlier. YouTube videos, Twitch streams, Discords. Talk to multiple people and get ideas. Don't take just my word for it. Don't just take MrPokke's word for it. Don't take your friend that pulls their phone out of their pocket and is like, bro, I'm really good at Honkai Star Rail. Don't take any one source of information as gold. Get multiple opinions and then formulate your own, okay? I thought this was pretty good. If you guys are watching this on YouTube and you made it this far, please do me a favor and drop a like, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to upload more and more frequently, a lot of HSR and gotcha stuff, and come hang out with us on Twitch sometime. I'll have it linked in the description, twitch.tv/nixirl. We're live literally all the time. And of course, leave a comment letting me know if you're a new player, if you're a veteran player, which of these tips do you think is the best and you would tell to a new player, all that jazz. Appreciate you guys for being here. I'll see you guys in the next video. Adios.